March 12, 1944. Camp Linden, New Jersey. The dawn arrives brittle, slicing through the frost that grips the barracks roof and settles in drifts along iron beams. Snowflakes scrape the windows, rattling against glass that wears the streaks of yesterday's melt. Samuel Klein, 21, Red Cross volunteer, wraps his threadbare coat tighter, feeling fingers stiff, pink and brittle. The men before him shift uneasily, their breath curling in small, visible puffs, uniforms stiff with cold, boots scuffed and damp. Soap has never been a gift here, only a mockery, and Samuel braces for the usual sneers. The corridor smells sharply of disinfectant, mixed with damp wool and the acrid tang of wood smoke curling from the cookhouse stove. Officer Harding's voice cuts across the room, brittle and precise, eyes forward. Samuel hesitates, clutching a single bar of soap, polished smooth, the faint lavender scent alien in this disciplined cold. He steps forward, tin in hand, offering it like a bridge. Fingers reach cautiously, brushing the cool surface, tracing edges once feared as instruments of ridicule. Thomas Meyer, 23. Rough hands scarred from labor, pauses, inhaling the faint scent. Soldiers glance at each other, tension coiling then loosening. Laughter doesn't come, shock, disbelief, and a flicker of relief weave through the line, threading a quiet pulse of recognition between men who had long expected only scorn. Samuel watches small gestures emerge, a shrug of shoulders, a hand brushing against another's palm, careful, testing this unexpected decency. The officer's presence looms, yet silence governs him now. His authority feels momentarily suspended. Samuel's chest tightens, the uncertainty almost painful, as he senses the bar's potential. Something beyond cleanliness, a tiny vessel of trust. The men's eyes meet, softening, questioning. Soap, simple and unassuming, has landed in hands unaccustomed to kindness. Samuel feels a cautious optimism stir, fragile, almost imperceptible. Outside, snow continues to scrape against the roof, indifferent. Inside, a subtle warmth begins to gather in the quiet. The cold seeps deeper, curling around the barracks floorboards, finding cracks in boots and fabric, a persistent presence beneath every movement. Samuel watches as the soap travels slowly down the line, passing from palm to palm like a quiet river. Each soldier hesitates, studying it, rubbing the cool bar between calloused fingers, feeling its edges, inhaling faint hints of lavender that clash with the scent of damp wool. The room is dim, frost tracing small white lines along windows, sunlight struggling through. Thomas Meyer, once cynical, breaks the silence with a tentative, almost shy smile. It's the first sound that isn't harsh, a fragile ripple. A murmur rises, low, careful, spreading like smoke through the line. Soldiers, once rigid, now mimic small gestures, adjusting sleeves, straightening collars, smoothing hair back from faces tense with skepticism. Hands pass the soap with care, fingers lingering, brushing lightly against one another. Samuel notes every subtle change, the lifting of shoulders, the softening of eyes, the smallest tilt of head acknowledging shared understanding. The officer stands rigid in the corner, observing, lips tight, but no command escapes him. The moment belongs to the men. Outside, wind rattles the roof, and snow slides silently down iron beams. Inside, tension unwinds in measured increments. Blankets are folded, boots polished, and small acts of attentiveness begin to layer themselves into routines that once belonged solely to discipline. A cook, Miriam, slides a tray of weak tea across the table. The men pause to accept it, hands brushing the cups, the faint warmth spreading through chilled fingers. Samuel feels it in his chest, the recognition that a minor gesture can ripple outward, altering expectation. Each soldier, by engaging with the soap, participates in a shared ritual of quiet dignity. It is subtle, unannounced, almost invisible, but profound. A bridge has formed, unspoken, fragile, yet enduring. The bar reaches the last man, hesitating, fingers curling around it as if holding a small treasure. He nods, ceremonial in his motion, completing the journey. Samuel exhales slowly, sensing momentum he cannot yet name. Small, human connection now pulses beneath the surface of the barracks, where fear had once reigned. But this was only the beginning. March 13th, 1944. Frost-lined windows filter a pale, hesitant morning sun into the barracks, casting long, thin shadows across the worn wooden floor. Samuel Klein and Thomas Meyer sit side by side at a long, scarred table, scrubbing mess kits with bristled brushes, water steaming faintly in the cold air. Their hands still carry the lavender scent of the soap passed yesterday, a lingering reminder of a ritual now unfolding beyond mere hygiene. The men around them move with careful deliberation, faces softened, brows less furrowed, as if each action, folding blankets, adjusting collars, polishing boots, carries significance now. A quiet acknowledgement of shared decency. Samuel watches Thomas lean over a younger recruit, showing him the precise angle to scrub a pan without splashing water. The boy's eyes widen, absorbing instruction without shame. Each movement, each small gesture becomes a lesson in patience and care, a discovery that routine can harbor dignity. The sound of running water, the scrape of brushes against metal, and the faint swish of soap through foam create a rhythm, a subtle symphony of emerging order and trust. Samuel notices soldiers washing faces for the first time with attention, marveling at warmth on cold skin, fingers lingering on cheeks, the sensation of simple cleanliness transforming into something intimate, almost celebratory. The barracks hums quietly now, boots replaced by soft steps and tentative whispers. Miriam, the cook, passes plates of watery porridge, steam curling into the chill air. Soldiers pause to nod in thanks, hands brushing as they pass the bowls, small gestures layering into a new, shared etiquette. Samuel's heart tightens as he sees others folding uniforms with precision, arranging personal effects on wooden shelves, attention paid to details once ignored. The soap, simple and smooth, slides from hand to hand, evolving from object to symbol, a conduit of humanization. Outside, wind tugs at the barracks roof, indifferent. Inside, subtle warmth spreads. The officer's presence fades into the background, authority diminished in the face of collective quiet care. The real shock comes later, March 15th, 1944. Snow melts into rivulets along the barracks floor as a sudden thaw lets the cold retreat in patches, sunlight glinting off wet wood. Samuel walks the corridor, observing the transformation. Soldiers exchange bars of soap voluntarily, leaving none empty-handed. Eyes meet with mutual understanding, small smiles flicker, and shoulders relax. The once rigid, fearful line now moves in fluid, measured gestures of attention. Blankets tucked snugly for warmth, rationed bread shared silently, whispers of acknowledgement floating between men. Thomas Meyer kneels beside a younger recruit, demonstrating careful soap usage, guiding fingers, and offering encouragement. The simple bar has become a vessel of dignity, an instrument for humanization. Samuel notices subtle signs of internalized change. A soldier pauses mid-step to steady another's chair, a bed folded with extra care, a scarf adjusted for comfort. These gestures ripple outward, multiplying quietly. The officer stands at the far end, still and observing, powerless to command this newfound camaraderie. The air carries the mingling scents of wood polish, damp wool, and lavender, an unusual harmony in a barracks once dominated by discipline and fear. Samuel's chest tightens with recognition. Decency does not need applause. It spreads, stubborn and persistent, in small, unnoticed actions. Men walk with a new rhythm, movement softened, eyes attentive to one another's needs. The passage of time compresses in montage, mornings spent folding laundry together, evenings rinsing boots in unison, small corrections offered without rebuke, laughter flickering quietly over shared tasks. Outside, wind still howls, but inside, warmth persists. Samuel senses these small gestures will echo beyond the barracks, reaching places unseen, shaping characters and choices in ways he cannot yet comprehend. The men have absorbed the unspoken lesson. Respect and care can thrive even where cruelty was expected. February 2nd, 1985. Sunlight streams through tall, narrow windows in a nursing home in New Jersey, pooling in golden rectangles across the polished linoleum. Samuel Klein, now 62, thin and stooped, sits in a high-backed chair, pressing a bar of soap into his palm. He has carried it with him for decades, wrapped carefully in cloth, edges worn smooth from touch and memory. Across the room, Thomas Meyer, 64, arrives for a scheduled visit. His gait is slower, his shoulders slightly hunched, but when their eyes meet, recognition ignites instantly, bridging decades in a heartbeat. The bar of soap rests between them like a talisman, unremarkable yet heavy with unspoken history. They speak in low tones, voices careful and hushed, recounting the events of a march long past. Each memory carries the texture of cold wood, the scent of lavender soap, the scrape of boots on frozen floors. Their gestures echo across time, fingers brushing the smooth surface of the bar, hands tightening briefly around each other's shoulders. Subtle nods of shared understanding. A nurse wheels a tray past, unaware of the decades compressed into a single, quiet object. Sunlight glints off the soap, illuminating scratches, tiny chips, and polished edges softened by time. Samuel notices a faint tremor in Thomas's fingers as he lifts the bar, as if the object carries not only scent and shape, but the weight of every hesitation. Every moment of quiet courage they shared. They recall how soldiers once hesitated, uncertain, before the gift of a simple bar, and how small acts of attention rippled outward, changing routines, attitudes, and hearts. Words fail to capture the resonance of those days, yet the soap conveys it fully, unspoken. Outside, winter sunlight filters through bare trees, and the quiet hum of the nursing home forms a backdrop for their reunion. Samuel and Thomas share a smile, soft and knowing. In that exchange, decades of distance collapse, leaving only the echo of care, of patience, of subtle courage. The bar of soap, unchanged in form, has become a repository of life's quiet lessons, of trust, decency, and the enduring power of ordinary acts. It is a witness to the decades, a testament to the enduring human spirit, and a reminder that gestures, however small, can ripple endlessly through time. February 3rd, 1985. Sunlight warms Samuel's shoulder as he sits by a wide window, the nursing home quiet except for the soft shuffle of passing footsteps. Thomas has left, but the bar of soap remains on the table, a silent witness to decades of memory. Samuel traces its edges with a fingertip, noting the wear, the smoothness, honed by countless hands and years of reverence. He reflects on what it has carried, trust forged without words, dignity preserved quietly, fear replaced by subtle courage. The small object embodies gestures unnoticed in their moment, but monumental in retrospect. Samuel recalls the barracks of March 1944, frozen floors, frost-lined windows, the smell of disinfectant mingled with damp wool. He sees Thomas kneeling beside recruits, hands guiding gently, voices offering quiet instruction. He remembers the ripple of small acts, blankets folded with care, boots polished without complaint, rations shared silently, smiles exchanged without expectation. Across decades, those gestures have shaped lives, molded character, and built bridges of understanding that neither he nor the men at the time could fully comprehend. The lavender scent of the soap, faint yet persistent, lingers in memory as a marker of humility, patience, and the courage inherent in ordinary kindness. Samuel whispers to no one, to everyone. Gestures given without expectation can transform spaces, relationships, and even generations. He envisions the young men of the barracks, now grown, carrying forward the subtle lesson of human decency, each small kindness a thread in a web, spanning years. The symbolic object rests in the sunlight, unassuming yet immense in significance. Samuel closes his eyes, feeling the weight of accumulated decades, the quiet triumph of small acts repeated over time. He breathes deeply, absorbing warmth, memory, and the enduring message contained in that single bar. Ordinary acts, persistent and gentle, endure, shape, and define the measure of humanity. The lesson crystallizes. Simple, universal, and eternal. It is in the quiet gestures that we discover the measure of ourselves. The bar of soap rests in a pool of sunlight, edges softened and rounded by decades of handling. Each small nick and scratch a record of countless gestures passed hand to hand. Samuel Klein leans back in his chair, eyes closed, absorbing the warmth of the room, the quiet hum of the nursing home, and the distant echo of memories that stretch across 41 years. He recalls frozen barracks, snow scraping against iron beams, soldiers' skeptical glances, and the first hesitant smiles that shifted tension into trust. Every fold of a blanket, every careful scrub of a mess kit, every whispered word of guidance rises again in his mind, forming a chain of subtle courage and ordinary decency. Thomas Meyer's laughter drifts faintly from across the room, a sound as vivid as it was in their youth, bridging decades in a heartbeat. The sunlight glints off the soap, reflecting the faint lavender scent they both remember so vividly. The object, once a simple instrument of cleanliness, has transformed. It is now a symbol, a witness, a vessel of shared humanity. Hands that once shook with fear now clasp each other in quiet acknowledgement. Eyes that once darted with suspicion now hold recognition, understanding, and enduring friendship. Outside, a single bird taps against the window pane, tiny and insistent, a small sound in a vast, silent world. Samuel opens his eyes, feeling the warmth of the room, the presence of time, and the connections that persist across years and space. Memory and object intertwine, soap and soul reflecting each other. Every gesture, every moment of care, each act of patience and subtle courage, lingers. Ordinary acts matter, they echo, they endure. And finally, the story settles into one simple, universal truth, repeated in the quiet of sunlight, known by all who witness it. Kindness, once given, never disappears. Take this forward. Notice small gestures. They shape lives in ways often unseen, yet endlessly profound.